Welcome to Quick Bytes. My name is Lauren Admirand, and I own a real estate consulting firm. I've been working in retail since I was 15 years old, and I love everything about it. In this series, I'll teach you the basics of what you need to know about retail commercial real estate. If you're new to the industry, or if your specialty is not retail, then this series is for you. In today's episode, I'm going to cover the LOI, so let's dive in. What is a letter of intent? An LOI is a non-binding summary of major transaction terms between two parties. An LOI is also the first step in the process to securing a location. Normally, both the landlord and the tenant are going to be represented by brokers who negotiate the major terms. Every deal and every property is unique. It's important to recognize negotiations take time, but that time can kill deals. If you need time to review and respond, that's okay, but be communicative to the other party. Don't ghost them. And here's a hot tip. Make sure that you are tracking changes and redlining the documents properly. There is a lot of back and forth, and the starting terms are rarely the ending terms. So keeping the document organized via track changes will be valuable if you ever have to look back. So why does it take so long to negotiate if it's non-binding? Well, the terms on the LOI are the most important things to both parties. It's the meat of your deal. You're identifying key components to getting closer to lease, from the financial obligations to where people are going to park. And like I said before, where you start is not where you finish. This stage is also a signal of what your lease negotiation can be like. The easier it is to go back and forth between the two of you on the LOI might indicate that it's going to be easy to get through a lease negotiation. But it's important to remember the lease is a different ballgame. How we work together during this process may be indicative of how things are going to be down the line when things are difficult. Leasing retail space is a long-term investment. All parties should be evaluating the risk versus reward of all the terms being negotiated. Consider it an open due diligence period to find out as much as you can about each other. Some of the key financial terms that are normally addressed on the LOI are going to pop up here. Base rent is primary rent for the space and is normally quoted on a per square foot basis. Additional rent is your CAM, your taxes, your insurance, your utility reimbursements, or anything variable that becomes due under the lease. Your rent abatement and free rent is usually used to offset construction expenses, or is at the beginning of the term after a tenant has gone through a significant financial burden of opening a space. Percentage rent and sales are typically something that a tenant is going to try to not have to report, but most landlords are going to require it, not only so that they understand the health of the business, but if a business is doing really well, the landlord gets to participate in some of that success. Your landlord work and your TI is going to identify what, if anything, the landlord is going to contribute to the build, or if they're going to build it for you, and the condition they're going to deliver the space in. The maintenance obligations is huge, and that often gets overlooked and undervalued. Maintenance of the building and of the space is costly, especially over a years-long period. Both parties need to understand what their maintenance obligations are and to budget accordingly. You have insurance requirements. Listen, there is insurance for everything. So you want to be very clear and specific on the type of insurance that you are going to carry, and you want to be specific about the type of insurance you're willing to reimburse the landlord for that they carry. Finally, the guarantee and security deposit are typically negotiated once the landlord has reviewed the financial condition of the tenant. You should not execute the lease until you understand if this tenant has the ability to move forward. Here are some other key terms that will be on the LOI. This is not an exclusive list. Anything can be on the LOI, but these things will definitely be on there. Permitted use. What is the business allowed to do? Be specific. Don't leave this too wide open. Co-tenancy. Is there an anchor tenant at this location? If they close, how many other tenants get a rent reduction? How does that impact the cash flow? And tenants. If your supermarket closes and traffic drops off a cliff, how do you pay rent? Parking. If the parking ratio requirement is 3 per thousand, you really need 6 per thousand. Parking is the most underdesigned and overutilized part of a project. Most developers don't want to dedicate rentable area to parking, but without parking, the businesses are going to suffer. So we need to figure that out. The other thing I want to touch on here is termination rights. A lot of people don't want to talk about this, but I consider it a prenup. Everyone can do everything right, but it still might not work out. It's better to have it identified and pre-negotiated on the front end when everyone is friends than to fight it out and waste a ton of time, energy, and money in mediation when things haven't gone our way. Know your property. What I'm getting at is a concise LOI with clearly defined terms is a form of risk mitigation. So know the property, know the location. Both parties should identify what their non-negotiables, their goals, and their areas of flexibility are so that they can move through the process as smoothly as possible. And when you really look at it, everyone's requirements are pretty similar. You need to protect the investment. You need to understand what the lenders are expecting, what the approvals are, and you need to know the CCRs, your zoning, and your demographics. When you look at it like this, everyone has a lot more in common in the deal than not. Like I said before, I usually collect these materials before I'm going to committee. I want to know that the time and energy I'm putting into the deal is worth it. And since people are skittish about opening up their financials to others, signing an NDA is a great option for everyone to start feeling more comfortable. It builds trust, and that's a huge part of the business. This is a list of the documents that I typically require or review when I'm qualifying a tenant or a prospective business. The most important thing here is the proof of funds and available cash. We need to know that at the end of the day, this group can move forward. And you can request this not only from your tenant, but from any current or future guarantors that might be associated with the lease. The terms are negotiated, the financial package is collected, the tenant executes the LOI. So your next step is to bring it to committee. And committee is the team responsible for asset performance and for making all the major decisions. In this meeting, they're going to go over the terms of the deal against their own business plan. They'll ensure compliance with the budget, make sure there's no violations or zoning restrictions with your use, and then they're either going to accept or deny the deal. If they deny it, that's typically the end. But if it gets accepted, the landlord's going to sign the LOI and transfer the package over to legal to start drafting the lease. Now, tenants, make sure you request a fully executed copy of your LOI and keep it for your records so you can compare it against your new lease draft. If you get denied, you have every right to ask why you were denied. In summary, the LOI is an agreement of major terms to go to lease. It's an opportunity for a deal to take place, and the parties can have confidence that a deal will take place. But the LOI is not binding. It isn't a lease, and it's not a guarantee you will get that signed lease. There's still a lot more work to be done, but we'll cover that in the next bite. Thank you so much for having a quick bite with me. If this was helpful and you enjoyed any part of it, please like, share, subscribe, add my channel, or comment below. I'm not going to respond to negativity, but I will respond to constructive feedback. If there's a topic you want me to cover, leave it in the comments and I'll add it to my list. And this is Mr. Wiggles. Thanks and have a great day.